I am with Sid Pardeshi, the co-founder, CTO, and inventor of Blitzy. Sid, how did this company get started, and what made you choose to pursue this work?
Yeah, so I've been at NVIDIA since I graduated from college. It's the only other company I ever worked for. And I had the opportunity to be close with Jensen in all of the company meetings, from building really core and impactful products that were ahead of its time. Like cloud gaming was the first product we built, but we were doing this back in 2015, 2016, right, where no one was talking about that. And over the period of time, we had this pursuit as AI became a thing. Attention is all you need. Paper came out. No one was talking about generative AI or Gen AI. And we started inventing solutions. I started filing patents for NVIDIA, and I invented 25 generative AI solutions for NVIDIA. So throughout that journey, what we discovered, the biggest opportunity for AI in Jensen was in natural language processing. And what we saw was that if we pursued relentless automation in the field of the AI software development lifecycle, we foresaw tremendous productivity gains and the ability to do things that have not been done before. So I had this vision of the next frontier for the enterprise software development lifecycle, but I lacked the ability to take it forward and make it into a company, which is what Brian and I saw together at HBS, and that's essentially how Blitzy came to be.
Yeah, and for anyone who's been living under a rock, Jensen is Jensen Huang, the CEO and founder of NVIDIA, which is the largest and most important company in the world as we sit here today. So that's good DNA to come from.
Yep.
Now, as we think about Blitzy, the actual company that you've now institutionalized and are building, what makes Blitzy unique, and how are you institutionalizing that work that you sort of started to do back in India?
So if you think about Blitzy, it comes from Brian and I's vision of looking forward and reasoning back,
sure,
which is also a quote of one of our HBS professors. And the idea is that, what do we think is AI going to be able to do? We sat down in 2023 and we thought about this. We thought 10 years, 20 years into the future, and we look at the present, and models only had 5,000 token context windows,
right,
which means the best they could work with was 50 to 500 lines of code, right? And you have enterprise code bases that are millions of lines of code. So it was a really hard problem when Brian and I looked at it right when we were starting. But we believed on what we had seen and experienced on the road leading to that point. We made a few bets on how models will evolve, who would be the winners of the space, and what it would take to build a system that stands on the shoulders of giants. So the vision was, let's automate the entire software development lifecycle, not just code, not just the requirements, not just the testing bit, not just the reviews. Let's look at the big picture, and let's fit it bespoke to the enterprise, such that it works in every situation. So the key difference, if you come back to the core of the question, right, that you have with Blitzy and the other tools, if I look at it from a non-technical lens, is that you don't need to change your process to work with Blitzy. You don't need to learn prompt engineering. You don't need to write guides that help your agents work optimally. You don't need to write extensive sets of rules, and you don't need to throw away your rules every 3 months when a new model comes out, right? You stick to your core practices, which is writing great specs, documenting the requirements, updating your project management tools, and you let Blitzy read that back to you in the form of a plan. And then when you hit build, you let Blitzy do all of the work that it can, right? And what we've seen realistically is that Blitzy finishes 80% of the work. And we've successfully worked on 30 to 40 million line code bases. Theoretically, there's nothing stopping us from working on 100 million line code bases. But the key differentiator between us and the other autonomous persona tools out there is that Blitzy focuses on doing all of the work without requiring a human in the loop.
And there's hundreds of customers now, or at least over 100 customers that are adopting this technology. Yes. Now, as you think about where enterprise AI is headed and the technical breakthroughs that have gotten you here and how to stay ahead, what should people know about sort of where Blitzy is headed and enterprise software too?
Yeah, there were a number of core challenges that we had to solve as the next step once we had done look forward and reason back. And one of the biggest one was context. right? There's no one saying that, hey, we cannot work with large code bases. There's a lot of products out there that claim to work with large code bases. But what happens is when you give it that large code base, it struggles to get all the facts right simultaneously, right? Because there's one dependency that's buried like 50 folders deep in some path that the AI agent thought was not relevant. We solve that problem by inventing an indexing technology that's a hybrid between a graph and a vector database. And that is dynamic enough such that it is not locked to abstract syntax trees. So we've been able to virtualize and emulate the function of the abstract syntax tree using LLMs and build a system that is dynamic enough to work with any language, yet produce the effect of an AST. So what that means is Blitzy can really understand your code base and recommend and make decisions that are closer to what a human engineer would do. So that was one of the fundamental problems that we had to solve, which led to our claim of infinite context. It's not an infinite context window, but it can work without being limited by how much information you can provide to it. That's one part of it. The second part of it is the runtime scale of operations, right? So most products in the market are tied to the agent. So I can click on the dropdown and select Claude Sonnet, or I can select Gemini or OpenAI's models. And then I have to stay committed to that model, prompt it accordingly, and get the work done, and it produces different results. But the thing is, no one has the best model for every situation, right? As of date, you have Gemini that's really good for general purpose. You have Claude that a lot of people think is good for coding. GPT-5 is similar, but none of them are standalone, produce the best experience. And you have a lot of evals that try to evaluate this, but the evals themselves have either been conquered because we scored 86.8% on Sweetbench. There's a lot of training set leakage, and there's a lot of other challenges. So the evals are not like the factor that helps you decide which LLM is the best. You have a lot of LLMs that have different numbers. So the way to get the best results, in our opinion, in our experience, has been to combine the function of different LLMs for different use cases.
Right.
So what we do at Blitzy is we identify the best LLM for the use case, and if needed, we even fuse the function of different LLMs together, and we produce an experience of a meta model that has infinite context and that produces the highest quality results that are validated and that are fit to the specific needs of the enterprise.
And finally, like for engineers that want to dive into the deep end of generative AI, what are the problems that they can expect to work on at Blitzy?
I think this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity where we are at this time, because right now, Blitzy is the only tool of its kind. We go into the meetings with the enterprise confidently, and we tell them that, and that's what we hear back from the enterprise as well, right? And it's because we've solved the fundamental problems that would prohibit building a system like this in the first place. The best part of this is it feels like NVIDIA all over again, right, in 2016, which means you've built the breakthrough, you have something that works. How do you take it to the next level? NVIDIA was the top of the gaming market, the high-end gaming market, and then it had invested in its technology enough that when the AI wave came across, it was at the right place at the right time, and it could be the leader of the space. We have a similar opportunity now where you've built the core, and now you have the opportunity to build so many valuable features on top of that that are bespoke to so many enterprises. As because 2025 was the year when enterprises started realizing that you could adopt AI in many of the cases, and 2026 is where we're actually going to see the ramp. So Blitzy is here this time. You can build a lot of cool stuff with it, to it, right? Because we use Blitzy to build Blitzy. That's the biggest perk of working here. And you can just change the way enterprises use AI by joining us at this moment.
This is Sid, the co-founder, CTO, and inventor of Blitzy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.